Hey, what is up YouTube? Kolst here with the next installment of Murder at Castle Nathria Mini-Set Maw and Disorder card reveals. But before we get into that once again, gotta talk about this really quickly because it appears that Blizzard has completely leaked the new rotation for Arena. And how do we know that, you might ask? Well, you can see we're looking at the current Arena cards part of the Blizzard website, which is a good resource to see, you know, if you want to think about which cards to play around, whatever. But you might notice we have it filtered to Mage right here. These are cards that are not currently draftable in Arena, like Arcane Artificer, Fauna Power, Evocation. It also includes cards that are never draftable, like, you know, quests. But what it does appear is that this is the new rotation, so they just accidentally switched it over too early. A lot of times they aren't great at keeping this stuff up to date. Sometimes it disappears, sometimes they are very late to actually update it, but this time they were too early. And it does look like it's a legitimate rotation. It's the right number of cards, right number of sets, and it looks kind of normal. The sets that they are showing here right now, there is the core set, Murder at Castle Nathria, of course, the most recent set, but then a lot of older sets. So it's Ashes of Outlands is the newest other set, Rise of Shadows, Journey to Ungoro, Kobolds and Catacombs, and Blackrock Mountain. And so a lot of these older sets are relatively stronger older sets, but they are old sets, so you know they're just not power crept anywhere near the level of stuff they've been releasing. Which kind of means that we're going to be in a situation where the Murder at Castle Nathria cards are going to be dominating the meta, and a lot of your deck's power is just going to be how many of these new cards were offered. And the other critical thing is that this brings back, with Ashes of Outlands, a lot of the imprisoned cards. So, you know, there's Imprisoned Ginharg, Imprisoned Scrap Imp, a couple of the other really strong imprisoned cards, Imprisoned Observer, for example. And these are cards that, you know, very early on can win the game by themselves. So these cards combined with Wild Seeds locations, there's going to be a lot of cards getting decided on very, very early turns. Blizzard seems to like this for some reason, so that's something we're going to be used to, I guess. But otherwise, I mean, these older sets have a lot of value. They're just fun sets to play with generally, so we'll have to see how this meta comes out to overall. And of course, we've mentioned previously that they have been teasing some kind of an arena event, so we don't know yet if that's actually going to happen yet or not, so we'll have to see for that if there's dual class or something new, because maybe that'll come now, maybe it won't be until like maybe a month from now or something like that. But with that, let's talk about these new cards. So I believe the sets that we have here, we have Hunter, we have Paladin, and we have Warrior. So starting out for Hunter, we have Motion Denied. This is a 2-mana secret in Hunter. After your opponent plays 3 cards in a turn, deals 6 damage to the enemy hero. Now this is in Hunter, and there's also an improved version, interesting, where it deals 9 damage. That's kind of amazing. So Hunter likes to deal damage to the enemy hero, of course, and 6 damage is a lot. However, this probably isn't a great card to draft in Hunter, because the issue with any of these things that rely on your opponent playing 3 cards, this doesn't have any tempo, so it's 2 mana do nothing. There's ways to discount it which might make it better, but it's not worth anything if your opponent just never plays 3 cards, and sometimes they don't, and if you skip early mana to play it, then it's just, you're not going to have any minions to hit them in the face, and even if they're at 24 health, you're just not going to get there, right? So overall, probably not a great card for Hunter, but if your opponent puts a lot of coins in their hand or something, you know, you might want to discover it, right? It's an interesting thing to have in the game and something you're going to want to think about because people will probably draft it way more than they should, so you will see it sometimes. So moving on to the next card in Hunter, we have Shadehound. This is a 5-mana 6/5 beast, which is a pretty good stat line, so already a playable card, and then it also has the text, whenever this attacks, give your other beasts +2/+2. Your other beast, so it doesn't buff itself. And also, if you infuse this with 3 beasts, it gains Rush. So generally you're going to have some beasts in Hunter, but you're not going to have that many, so infusing 3 is going to be a little bit difficult. And then also, infusing 3 means not only do you have to have 3 other beasts, you have to have 3 other beasts die, which means they're not alive, so you're not able to buff them because they're dead. It's going to be very hard to actually get any value out of the Rush. It's just probably not going to happen, but you know, it's still just a good card because it's a 5-mana 6/5. It might just stick around. If it sticks around, it's going to be a really big problem for your opponent. Just in general, if you have a 6 attack minion as Hunter, it's a big problem for your opponent because it's just going to kill them very quickly. So Probably not a super powerful card beyond just its stats and its effect as a normal card, but a decent card for Hunter, which you will pick sometimes because it's just a good mid-range card and a scary threat for the opponent. So the last card we have here is Defense Attorney Nathanos. 6 mana, 5/4, Battle Cry. Discover a friendly death rattle minion that died this game, trigger and gain its death rattle. So because we have the benefit of seeing the new rotation, we can actually look through and see kind of what the death rattle pool is going to look like. There's nothing like super crazy. There's some very interesting ones. You can get like Augmented Porcupine, for example. You could get Zixor Prime as well if you were able to actually find that somehow. And there are some other like late game cards, you know, there's always High Main and stuff. So, you know, this is just going to be one of those kind of synergy based cards. You're not always going to have a great target for this, but if you do, this is going to be a pretty efficient card. It's still a little bit expensive being a 6 mana 5/4 body, you know, you're paying like 2 mana, so you do need to have something good. A lot of times you're just going to have a better legendary pick than this, so it's not crazy, but in the right deck, of course, it can be very good. So next we will move on to Paladins. Paladin, as with every class in this set, is going to have 3 new cards. The first one here is Class Action Lawyer. This is a 2 mana 2/3. Battle Cry. If your deck has no neutral cards, set a minion stats to +1/+1. So that's a very cool ability, you know, 2 mana, set a minion to +1/+1. That is a very good Paladin card. However, if your deck has no neutral cards, this is completely impossible to actually do in Arena. It's just completely impossible. Well, not completely impossible. Once you don't have a deck anymore, it's possible, but you know. This is a 2 mana 2/3 basically. So not very good, but it's, you know, sometimes you'll just have to pick it for a 2 mana 2/3. Alright, moving on, we have Order in the Court. This is a 2 mana spell. Reorder your deck from highest cost to lowest cost. Draw a card. So this is actually a reprint of a neutral card. There was Polkelt, was a legendary 4 mana 4/5 minion. This is a little bit interesting because it's Polkelt without the body. Instead of getting a 4 mana 4/5, you have 2 mana draw a card. Typically, 2 mana draw a card is worse than a 4 mana 4/5. And Polkelt was a card that some people thought was going to be the best card in the game. It didn't really end up being that way. And, you know, the issue with this I see is that if you're drawing the most expensive card in your deck, you're not going to be able to play it anyway. Sometimes it's nice to get just 1 card ahead to have more options out of your late game cards, but it's a little weird because it's just not going to do anything immediately. But it certainly fills a role. It basically means you're not going to run out of value for a very long time because you're able to draw the most expensive cards to your deck. So especially if you have very good late game cards, you'd definitely be willing to draft this. But, you know, if you're playing more of a tempo strategy, it might not be the best thing you're looking for. So a very interesting card. Paladin, however, just has better cards, but this could be the great card if this allows you to draw all your better Paladin cards. But a lot of Paladin cards are, the good ones are actually cheap, so it might not be what you're looking for. It's a card that you're going to want in some decks, but not others. Alright, and so the last card we have here for Paladin is Jury Duty. A 3 mana common spell. Summon 2 Silverhand Recruits. Give your Silverhand Recruits +1/+1. Obviously, there's just a whole bunch of Silverhand Recruit synergy in the game right now. A lot of that's in the core set. It's not going anywhere, and a lot of it's also in this rotation, or in this expansion, so it's also not going anywhere. But also, at the worst case, this is just 3 mana for 2 2/2s, which is just already very good. So this is a very powerful card at baseline even, and with all the possible synergies, it just gets even better. It's a common card, so you're going to be seeing this everywhere. Because, you know, just if you're on coin, for example, coining this into Warhorse Trainer, that could just end games by itself. That's just an absurdly powerful. And with that, let's move on to the last class, which is Warrior. Warrior's getting an interesting package of cards here. We'll just say the first one here is Call to the Stand, a 1 mana spell. Your opponent summons a random minion from their hand. It's like Dirty Rat, but 1 mana cheaper, but you don't get a 2/6 taunt. You would much rather have Dirty Rat. Dirty Rat already is a terrible arena card, and this is a worse version of Dirty Rat, so never pick it, basically. I won't even say basically, just never pick it. Next up, we have Weapons Expert. 3 mana 3/2 Battle Cry. If you have a weapon equipped, give it +1/+1. Otherwise, draw a weapon. So basically, there were legendaries that would have this effect where you could upgrade your weapon, and they would be Like there was, for example, a 5 mana 5/4 legendary. That's a very old card, but you know, that was pretty good if you could actually have a weapon, and this is also very good in that case. But also a 3 mana 3/2 draw a weapon. Weapons are usually some of the best cards in your deck, so drawing a weapon, that's also very good. So either way, good card. Not crazy good, but good. But of course, the only time it's not going to be good is if you just don't have any weapons, period, and then it's very, very bad, because then it's just a 3 mana 3/2. But usually you should have weapons in Warrior, so obviously don't pick it if you don't have weapons, but otherwise you should expect to have weapons, so it's a pretty good card. Then the last card in Warrior we have is Mossworn Bailiff. 5 mana 4/4 taunt with Battle Cry. If you have 4 or more armor, gain +4/+4. So having 4 armor typically is not super hard. Of course, just expecting to hero power twice and then have all that armor stick around and then play this on curve, that's just not very likely to have. So you would need something to combo with it. I mean, you usually don't want to pick like Ironhide, for example, or looking through the cards again. I mean, you could have a Bash and that might help you out. Could have a Dry Whisker armor theoretically. And there is shield block. There is unidentified shield. This card is kind of pickable. But you know, we don't have like that 8-drop, for example. That would be one of the easiest ways to combo this. So there isn't really a great... You would need a very common pickable card that gives you enough armor to activate this for this to really be reliable. So unless you happen to get forced to pick a shield block or something, and even then, you're just probably not going to want to rely on this. It obviously could work out, but you just shouldn't expect it to. The games you're going to need it to work, you're just not going to have the armor. It's not going to be a very consistent strategy. It's going to be more of a bait. But with that, that is it for these cards. Thanks a lot for hanging out, everyone. As always, let me know in the comment section what you guys think. Like, subscribe, comment, all that stuff, and click the bell. Thanks a lot for hanging out. We'll see you guys in the next one, which I will record in an hour as they reveal the last cards. See you guys then.